Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the State Water Control Board today, Monday, September the 16th. It's good to see everybody. I may be a little loud, so whoever's in control of the volume, I'm sitting way back. But anyway, welcome board members. It's good to see everyone today. And so before we get started, I'm going to have some rules that I'm going to read. And also, after that, we'll have an introduction of the board. We have a new member, so welcome Mr. Yob today. And so here goes. Attendees may not erect any signage inside or outside the meeting room or the building. Attendees are not entitled to be disorderly or disruptive, disrupt the meeting from the proceeding in an orderly, efficient, and effective fashion. Disruptive behavior may result in a recess or removal from the meeting. Possession or use of any device that may disrupt the conduct of the business is prohibited, including but not limited to voice amplification equipment, bullhorns, blowhorns, sirens, or other noise-producing devices, as well as signs on sticks, poles, or stakes, or helium-filled balloons. All attendees are asked to be respectful of all speakers. Rules will be enforced fairly and impartially, not only to ensure the efficient and effective conduct of the business, but also to ensure no interference with the business of the complex, its employees, and its guests. Attendees wishing to record the proceedings are welcome to do so. However, you may not interfere with the business of the meeting, nor impede the view or participation of other meeting attendees and staff. No smoking is allowed unless in a designated outside space. This includes tobacco and e-cigarettes. No alcohol, fireworks, pyrotechnics, weapons, or any substances items controlled by law are allowed. No firearms are allowed in the state's contracted spaces except for firearms carried by law enforcement officers or authorized security personnel. All violators may be subject to removal from the meeting facility. Anyone removed from the facility may not re-enter. Anyone who fails to comply with removal may be charged with trespass. And so I'll leave it at that this morning and move forward with the agenda. Before I do that, let me welcome you members to the board and call for introductions. I'm going to start down here to my left, which is Mr. Brannon.
Tommy Brannon.
Michelle Johnson.
Scott Cameron.
Robert Dunn.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Yob.
Mike Bolban, Director DEQ.
Good morning. Ross Phillips, Office of the Attorney General.
And Lou Wallace, Russell County, Virginia. Moving on to the agenda, I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda now.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Shucks. I have a motion and a second. Anything else, any discussions, any agenda, any amendments or anything? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Sorry about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now I'm going to have some problems with this microphone. I can see already, so excuse me. Moving on to the minutes, I'm going to ask for approval of the minutes. Has everyone, they've had your books, so go over the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of our June 25th meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'm going to ask our members of the board that have some statements that they need to make, and I'll start to my left with Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I submitted to DEQ staff a signed transactional disclosure statement pursuant to the Virginia State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act before participating in voting on these agenda items. I have a personal interest affected by the transactions being considered because of my employment as County Administrator of Charles City County. Charles City County, like other Virginia localities, holds Virginia Pollutant Discharge Elimination System and groundwater withdrawal permits, administers a Virginia Stormwater Management Program, a Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control Program, and is subject to the Virginia Pollution Abatement Regulations, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, sewage collection and treatment regulations, and permits for activities related to the Virginia Water Protection Program. I am able to participate in agenda items tabs B and C fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you. As an employee of Henrico County, I submitted to the DEQ staff a signed transactional disclosure statement pursuant to the Virginia State and Local Government Conflicts of Interest Act before participating in or voting on any of these agenda items. I have a personal interest affected by the transactions being considered because of my employment as a Deputy County Manager for Community Operations with Henrico County. Henrico County, like other Virginia localities, holds Virginia Pollution Discharge Elimination System permits, groundwater withdrawal permits, administers a Virginia Stormwater Management Program, or VSMP program, a Virginia Erosion and Sediment Control Program, or VESCP program, and we are subject to the Virginia Pollution Abatement Regulations, Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, the Sewage Collection and Treatment Regulations, and permits for activities related to Virginia Water Protection Program or programs. I hereby certify I'm able to participate fairly in agenda items B and C with objectivity and in the public interest.
Thank you both for that. So moving on to the final exemption regulations. This is the 2024 regulatory update to Title 40, Part 136, Code of Federal Regulations, 40 CFR, Part 136, Methods Update Rule. This is Mr. Bill Norris.
Hello? Yes, yeah, now. Again, I'm Bill Norris with DEQ's Water Planning Division and Water Permitting Division. I'm the team lead for the reg analyst, and we are here to talk about the 40 CFR updates, the method update rule. EPA is required by the Clean Water Act to establish analytical guidelines. Oops, wait a minute, sorry. There we go. To measure pollutants in effluent subject to permit requirements. These test procedures are required by industries and municipalities when analyzing the chemical, physical, and biological properties of wastewater and other environmental samples. The method update rule, 40 CFR Part 136, was updated in June 17th, 2024, and the categories of updates include updating versions of currently approved EPA methods. They added new and revised methods published by the Voluntary Consensus Standard Body. This update adjusts methods, the added methods the EPA has reviewed under their agency's National Alternative Test Program, Procedures Program, made corrections and amendments to the text and tables of 40 CFR Part 136. And one of the reasons for this update is EPA failed to complete the incorporation by reference updates in a previous CFR. So this update does all that. EPA anticipates these changes will provide increased make sure I'm on the right slide. Increased flexibility for the regulated community, incorporate technical advances, and makes minor changes. And will not have a negative impact. So basically what we do each year, this comes before you as an annual update, because EPA does an update on CFR at this time, usually in July of each year. So what we've done is gone through the regulations, and on your list, there's a whole list of them, and I'll get to them in a minute. And what we have done, instead of basically changing a date, we've added a statement that says, however, references to 40 CFR Part 136 are incorporated as published in the July 1, 2024 update. The number of regulations that are being amended include the VPDS permit and a total of, I believe, 13 general permits, the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulation, the VPA permit and 2 general permits, the VWP permit regulation and 4 of their general permits, the groundwater withdrawal regulations, and the stormwater collection and treatment regulations. These amendments are being done as a final exempt process because of the Virginia Administrative Process Act, which allows it to be necessary to meet requirements of the federal law or regulations or to make technical amendments. Any questions from the board?
Any questions for Mr. Norris? You may proceed.
Staff recommends that the board adopt these regulations, adopt the revisions to the regulations to update references to 40 CFR Part 136 as a final regulations, and affirm that the board will receive, consider, and respond to the petitions by any interested person at any time with respect to the reconsideration or revision.
You've heard staff recommendations. I need something from the board.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from this board? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulation 9VAC 25-875, the amendment to the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulation 9VAC 25-875 and all, in response to changes to the 40 CFR Part 122. That would be Megan Mayfield. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. It is my pleasure to present to you today the final exempt amendment to the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management Regulation 9VAC 25-875 in response to changes to 40 Code of Federal Regulations Part 122. My name is Megan Mayfield. I am the Director of the Division of Water Permitting for DEQ. And I apologize, these buttons are loud. DEQ has delegated authority from the EPA to implement the Virginia Pollution Discharge Elimination System, the VPDS permit program in Virginia. As such, our program must be consistent with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's program and meet those minimum standards. As such, regulatory action is required to conform to the changes in the Code of Federal Regulations under 40 CFR Part 122. This part goes to the municipal separate storm sewer system component, which was effective on July 12, 2023. It replaced the word urbanized area in there with urban area with a population of 50,000 or more people as determined by the latest decennial census by the Bureau of the Census. And as I said before, this affects those MS4 programs. So this simply clarifies that the designation criteria for those MS4s, which have been used since the promulgation of the regulations for the MS4s in '99, will remain the same. So we replaced urbanized area with urban areas with a population of 50,000 or more, as determined by the latest decennial census by the Bureau of Census in 9 VAC 25-875-970, as well as 875-980. And you can see there is just a map of our current census and the expanded areas of the census. So Virginia has a statutory authority for this underneath Article 2 of the APA pursuant to Virginia Code, Section 2.2-4006A4C. Does anyone have any questions regarding this?
Any questions? Hearing none, you may proceed.
Thank you. Staff recommendation is that we adopt the revisions to 9 VAC 25-875-970 and 9 VAC 25-875-980 as final regulations, and affirm that the board will receive, consider, and respond to petitions by any interested person at any time with respect for reconsideration or revision.
I'll entertain a motion from this board.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we've come to the agenda part, other business, and we're going to hear a report to the board regarding controversial permits. We'll start out with Advance 6 Resins and Chemical LLC of Hopewell, Virginia, through the Virginia Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Permit, VA 0005291. Mr. Morris, thank you and welcome this morning.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it's my pleasure to present the controversial permit report. Again, I'm Scott Morris. I'm the Water Division Director for DEQ Central Office. As just a reminder, Section 10.1 TAC 1184.1.b provides that each regular meeting of the State Water Control Board, the department shall provide an overview and update regarding any controversial permit pending before the department. A controversial permit includes a water permitting action for which a public hearing has been granted. This update serves to meet those requirements. As you remember, last State Water Control Board meeting, I gave an update Advance 6. This is just to give you a update on the status of that permit action. As a refresher, this is the general location we're talking about in Virginia. This is the location of the discharge point of the site. As a summary of actions that have been taken to date, this is going to be a reiteration of what was presented at the last State Water Control meeting with a slight update, but the draft permit was submitted to the applicant on June 13, 2023. The draft permit was submitted to EPA June 16, 2023. The public outreach meeting was held on September 21st, 2023. Public comment period was from October 31st of 2023 to November 30th, 2023. DEQ granted the request for a public hearing on December 19, 2023. And the permittee requested the permit be revised to accelerate the compliance schedule on February 26, 2024. DEQ revised the permit and submitted to EPA on March 15th with the revisions. EPA reviewed the revised permit and with concurrence on April 1st, 2024. A draft public hearing was held on May 21st, 2024. Public comment period from April 19th, 2024 to June 5th, 2024. And then a summary of comment public hearing was just held September 12th, 2024. And we expect a final action by the department in October timeframe. Questions or comments from the board?
Does anyone have any comments? Questions?
I have a question. Are they able to meet the current requirements that are in the permit, or are they going to have a difficult time?
The proposed permit is Advance 6 going to have the ability to meet the requirements in the permit? Is that the question?
My question is, you got new requirements in the new permit. Can they meet those easily, or is it going to be a difficult job for them to meet those limits?
There are going to have to be major upgrades at the facility to meet those requirements. We believe that in discussions with the permittee, they're able to meet the requirements, but there's going to be significant both financial investment, but infrastructure investments required on the site to achieve those compliance options.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the surface water withdrawal permit in issuance for Caroline County, please.
My pleasure again to go over the controversial permit report for Caroline County. And this is for VWP number 20-0514, the Rappahannock River Water Supply. Since this is a new, I do want to orient the board where this is in Virginia. You can look on this. It's the proposed Carolina intake, that little star right next to the map. This is a more drawn-in approach to get you oriented on what we're talking about here. As you see on the top, you'll see where the proposed intake is, and then that purple line that goes through, that is the proposed raw water intake. And then at the very bottom, you see that orange section. That's where the water treatment plant is going to be. The orange highlighted section is an alternative they evaluated for the raw water. And then as you see that little green square right next to that purple line, that's the existing wastewater treatment plant. Summary of request for a public hearing. General themes from individuals requesting a public hearing. They were curious about the interbasin transfer from the Rappahannock River and the Mattapony River. They wanted to know about the water quality impacts, including erosion and sedimentation due to construction and water temperature and salinity changes. There were some concerns raised against the accuracy of the water demand projections specified in the permit or fact sheet. There were questions about the water quality impacts for fish larvae, egg entrainment, and time of year restrictions related to endangered and threatened species and habitat. There were some concerns with environmental justice, including the public involvement in the town hall meetings that they believed had a lack of transparency, the county's method of acquisition of land through eminent domain. There was concerns with the stormwater management, erosion, and sediment control, VPDS, and environmental impact statement concerns. There was also concerns around the alternatives considered for the actual raw water intake supply. Now I'd like to go over just the summary of events. The application was received by DEQ on March 27, 2020. Application was deemed complete by DEQ on February 1st, 2024. Draft permit issued to the applicant on March 13th, 2024. Second draft of the permit issued to the applicant on April 11th, 2024. Public comment period was from May 18th, 2024 to June 18th, 2024. DEQ granted the request for a public hearing on July 17th, 2024. And a draft public hearing was to be held on September 25th, 2024 in the future. That's when it's scheduled. We expect public comment period. There's a slight update to this. It was from August 25th, 2024 to October 11th, 2024. So just clarity on those month durations. And then a summary of comments public hearing will be scheduled in November 2024. And a final action by the department is expected shortly thereafter, the same month, November 2024. Any questions or comments from the board?
Any questions?
Yes, I've got one, Madam Chairman. Mr. Morris, I realize that we're still fairly early in the process here. Do you have any sense as to whether or not there are likely to be takings under the Endangered Species Act?
Right now, there's not any takings on Endangered Species Act. That's something that you're supposed to prevent as part of the permitting action.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, we'll hear from Ms. Melanie Davenport on an update on Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Have to get used to the new technology. Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the board. This is an update on Mountain Valley Pipeline. As we discussed at the last board meeting, the pipeline had recently been put into service, and it has been in service since June of this year. And the vast majority of the work that is relevant to DEQ's responsibility is that the right-of-way is being regraded to its original contours and conditions. Also, temporary access roads and bridges that were necessary for crossing state waters in order to accomplish the construction are also being removed. Just a couple snapshots. The one on the bottom left is a stream crossing that is being returned to its natural contours and condition. And then, as you can see, actually regrading the right-of-way involves a fair amount of continued construction activity. Permanent stabilization is being applied, and permanent stormwater management controls, as required by the approved plans, are being constructed. And then the way it works is that the temporary controls remain in place until permanent stabilization is complete. And again, just a couple snapshots. You kind of can't appreciate the scope with the pictures, but hopefully it shows a little bit. Compliance activities from March until September. DEQ has received and investigated 16 complaints. Our third-party compliance contractor, which is MBP, has completed a little over 850 compliance inspections, and our staff has done 117. We have noted issues for corrective action, and that's 355. And then, as you recall, we evaluate noncompliance and assess stipulated penalties on a quarterly basis. So our last quarter was the second quarter, which was March through June of this year. And there were 22 instances of noncompliance that resulted in a civil penalty of just over $30,000. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Davenport?
I have one. You got number of complaints investigated was 16.
Yes, sir.
Are those coming from 16 different groups, 3 different groups, 1 different group? You got any idea how many people are putting in those complaints?
I personally have responded to maybe 5 from 1 individual citizen. It's most, we have citizens in the region of the project who keep a pretty close eye on what's going on, and a lot of those are submittals from those individuals. And they're often a lot of times, so FERC still has a major role in seeing this project through from a regulatory oversight point of view. So a lot of times individuals will copy us on FERC filings. And then we, of course, take a look from the perspective of what's our regulatory authority and then respond.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, next on our agenda is future meeting dates to be determined. Do we have those?
Yes, ma'am. We actually have a tentatively scheduled meeting for December the 4th. Is it not on? It's on? Okay. So we do have a meeting tentatively scheduled for December the 4th.
Thank you. We've all got that on our calendar now. Next is, we're going to have public forum time, not to exceed 45 minutes. Do you have some folks?
No, ma'am. We do not have anyone that has signed up to register to speak this morning.
So there's no need in me reading any?
There would be no need for you to
comment.
read that.
All right, very good. Anything else to come before this board? If not, I'll call for an adjournment.
Madam Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Got a motion. I need a second.
Second.
All in favor to adjourn this meeting?
Aye.
You're adjourned. Thank you.